Hey everyone, Adam Maynard here. Today I want to talk to you about the psychological phenomenon known as projection. Projection is really common in our relationships. If you're not familiar with it, this video is going to kind of break it down for you, tell you why it's important, how to spot it, what to do about it, and see if you can't bring your awareness to it a little more so that it isn't taking so much control over your relationships. So what is projection? A simple definition of projection is when someone is accusing you of something they are actually guilty of doing. In this sense, they are projecting outward onto you. They are applying onto you, onto your actions, your thoughts, your words, your person, attributes of themselves, characteristics of themselves, behaviors of themselves, and that is kind of a subconscious way of without realizing it, they're not aware that they're doing it, of eliminating the blame on themselves for those very attributes and to place them onto you, to kind of give you responsibility over them, to make you hold them, to kind of attribute them to you, even if they don't even really belong there. And you can probably spot these moments in relationships too, where you kind of go through these surreal moments where you're having an argument with someone and they kind of come at you for something, and you have this reaction where you're like, wait, what? Where is this coming from? I'm not doing that. That's not my intention. That's not what's in the arena for me here. That's not my contribution. What in the world is going on? And without knowing what projection is or that projection is possible, you might feel compelled to defend yourself. You might feel compelled to, try and convince the other person that that's not what's going on or that that's not where you're coming from. And being able to spot projection is really important, because in those moments, you don't engage in kind of any of that dance. You don't engage in kind of any of that blame game. You don't you absolutely don't take responsibility for things that really can't be attributed to you. So let me now try and give you a concrete example of what projection might look like in conversation, so you can crystallize the concept and be able to spot it more easily when it comes up in your relationships. So say there's a breach of trust in a friendship. Say that you catch a close friend talking to an ex of yours. And that's obviously a little bit of a strange situation. You don't know why they're doing that. The breakup was a little bit of a tumultuous one, and you're not on speaking terms with this ex anymore. So what is your friend doing, kind of going around behind your back and talking to someone that they probably know they shouldn't be talking to? When you confront your friend about this, not maybe even in an aggressive way, but you just bring it up to them, hey, I noticed, at that party I saw you talking to so-and-so, and they immediately get defensive, and they immediately not only get defensive but kind of flip the script on you, and where they accuse you of being untrustworthy, and they accuse you of not trusting them to handle themselves and to engage in your friendship with respect, with honor, with dignity. And they say, gosh, I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't know if I can trust you now. And you're there scratching your head thinking, wait, when did this become about me? This isn't about me. This is about your behavior. And what your friend is really saying in that moment is, I realize I've been untrustworthy. I realize I have breached the trust. But because they can't really receive that, and because they can't really acknowledge that, they need to push it away from themselves. They need to not own that responsibility anymore. And who is the next likely target? Because you are the one that they're in conversation with, and you are the one that they're kind of in this dance with, and they push all of that onto you, and they say, I'm a trustworthy person. You can trust me, even though they're acting in a way that is suspicious, and they're acting in a way that isn't maybe trustworthy on the whole. Another simple example of projection would be if you were to call someone out on their behavior, again, not in a really aggressive or even confrontational way, just as a way of simply bringing it to their attention as something that's bothering you or hard for you or upsetting you. And they kind of receive that in a way that distorts it and flips it again to where their response is, they get flustered and they get upset, and their response is, I can't believe you're doing this to me. Now that gives you pause, because here you are calling them out and bringing to their attention a way that their thoughts, words, and actions, their behavior is affecting you. and yet their response is to say, I can't believe what you're doing. I can't believe what you're doing right now. And what, underneath it all, if you can really get good at examining projection and kind of unraveling it, what they're really saying is, I can't believe I'm doing this to you. But they're not framing it in that way. Again, they're projecting their own feelings, their own guilt, their own shame, whatever it may be, onto you and onto your half of the relationship. And the crazy thing about projection is that when you get good at really identifying it and picking up on it in conversation on the fly with the people in your lives, you'll find it everywhere. You will literally find it everywhere. Not even in conversations where you're directly confronting someone about something, just in the way that people talk about their lives, in the way that people talk about the other people in their lives, in the way that they talk about your relationship with them. People project all the time, and projection is a really powerful drug, because when you get into kind of a conditioned habit of projection, what are you doing? You are absolving yourself of all of those kind of murky, uncomfortable feelings and placing the responsibility for the resolution of those feelings on the things outside of you, whether it be the other people in your life, the circumstances, etc. So it's kind of addictive in a way. It feels good in the moment. You get to kind of wash your hands of things and not really take ownership of them, and not really look at yourself closely in the mirror when you're asking other people to look in the mirror, holding the mirror up to their face instead. You're kind of denying the reflection and denying that opportunity then also for the growth and the development that introspection and that acceptance would really bring you. And another thing that happens when you get good at identifying projection is other people's words hold less power over you. They kind of hold less weight. If you can really on the fly identify when someone is projecting something at you, you don't even entertain for a moment that it could be something about you that you need to look at. It kind of just washes straight off your back, because you don't need to take ownership for things that are other people's. And when you know that that's what's happening, you can really step outside your own guilt and your own shame and your own complicated mix of emotions that may not even really have a place there. And of course, because relationships are always two-way streets, and this is my favorite part of the program, projection isn't always about other people. Projection is something that we do on a habitual, constant basis as well. And the better you get at tuning into when other people are projecting unwarranted things onto you, the better you'll get too at picking up on when you are projecting your own shit onto other people. And that's really where an opportunity for growth comes in for you as well. Because when you can realize, hey, this is really unfair to you. Like, I'm projecting my own stuff onto you. This is really my stuff to work out. These are really my emotions. These are really, the things that I don't really want to deal with. And that's not okay to be putting those things on you. You then get to recall all of that energy and all of that blame and all of that shame and all of that murk that you've been pushing away from yourself, and you get to call it back and reintegrate it in a way that ultimately, in the long run, increases your power again, because you are addressing and you are healing and you are resolving at the source, at the root, which is within you, where that impulse to project comes from in the first place. And every time you key into one of those nuggets and one of those little morsels that you are projecting on other people and go through that process where you are healing and reintegrating them, that brings you dominion over those parts of yourself. It brings you inner peace over those parts of yourself. It brings you control over those parts of yourself to the point where they come up for you again, and you don't feel the need to dish them out to the people in your lives. You know exactly what to do with them, and you've known exactly what to do with them for so long that they don't even really ruffle your feathers anymore. All right, everyone, there you have it, my quick crash course in projection. Wow, there's a tongue twister. I hope I've given you some info that you can use to more easily spot projection in your life, both in the way that you project your own stuff onto other people and the way that they project their stuff onto you, and really be able to more clearly delineate where the ownership of that blame is in your relationships and in your life. And one of the easiest ways to do that identification process is to is to flip the script of both what you're accusing other people of and what they're accusing you of, even as simply by replacing the pronouns that you or they are using in those moments of accusation, to really clarify in your own head who is actually responsible for this, who actually should assume the blame for this. And when you can really do that, projection, the power that projection has over you, and the power of that false accountability and false blame really has over you will dissolve in an instant. And I hope that you can very easily access the peace of mind that lies beyond.